Sean. I am, however, the fourth my name is Sherilyn. They couldn't get another Sean for tonight, so you have to do with a few more syllables, if that's okay for now. Pink Floyd. I was a huge, huge Pink Floyd fan as a teenager. I was like the classic, lonely, maladjusted teenage boy who found just like great profundity in all of their music, especially The Wall. When I discovered that, I was like, oh God, I get that. I mean, I'm not an aging British rock star feeling alienated from his swarms of fans, but still, that's about me somehow. That's my story somehow. And I would like draw walls, like intricate little walls on like the back of like tests in schools. I still have some of them, which it's a pack rat thing more than anything else. But I still have some where I just like spend hours doing the intimate little like brick lines. And yeah, Pink Floyd, they got me through a lot of stuff. So when I had the opportunity to see them in 1994 at the Open Coliseum on acid, I did not turn the opportunity down. I took 2 hits, as a matter of fact, and I spent most of the show just like watching one of their particular, like, you know, of their big light show, the big laser light show that they have, one particular set of lights. It was like a circular canvas screen, there were like lights going into it, and I spent the whole time like just trying to figure out, okay, how is it those lights aren't pointing toward me, but I'm seeing those lights, and I'm also seeing they're occasionally going like back to the people over there, and I'm seeing the light going over there, but I'm still seeing the light itself, and the light's going in that direction, but it seems to have a shape. But you know, I was still able to like really get into the music, even with my whole like light physics issue. I was still when the song Pulls Apart from their most recent album was played, it was still like a magical experience for me, because again, it was about me, you know? It was so much about me. And then years later, I wanted to try to find a bootleg copy of, or just some copy of that song from that tour. And if every single Pink Floyd site on the internet can be believed, that song was never played once on that entire tour. Therefore, that's the only actual hallucination I've ever actually had on acid. It was basically like a bonus track. It was like a B-side. It was my hallucination. But you know, when people think about drug bands, you know, associate drugs with rock and roll, they think of like Pink Floyd, obviously. They think of like the Grateful Dead. They think of like Keith Richards and the Rolling Stones. And you know, ain't none of them come close to. See, I just finished reading a book called Heroes and Villains: The True Story of the Beach Boys. Seriously, from their first hit single, those guys were fucked up the whole time. Brian Wilson doesn't even count. He was like paranoid schizoid all along anyway. They just didn't realize it. But his brother Dennis was just like freaking wild, like the entire time up until his death in 1982. And that should tell you something right there. Keith Richards and actually Jerry Garcia both outlived Dennis Wilson. That's how wild the man was. So think about that next time you're listening to Fun, Fun, Fun. And he drowned. Dennis Wilson drowned. He did not, unfortunately, for my purposes, choke on his own vomit. And this is a shame for me, you know, it sucks for him, I guess, but it's especially a shame for me because that's kind of the theme. I haven't decided which story I'm going to read, and I need your help to decide. I can either read a story about vomiting when you don't want to, or needing to vomit but not being able to. So the first one or the second one? What do you want to hear? Second one? Second one? Okay. Hey, the second one. That's the one I was going to read anyway. How convenient. Okay. This is called This Is Not Going to Be a Bad Trip. It was as if a firecracker went off in my brain. Sudden, powerful, and unexpected. In spite of the fact that I'd been holding the proverbial thing in my hand before it exploded. It was the most THC I had ever had in my system. To get an equivalent amount through smoking would have long since put me to sleep. With the innocuous-looking brownies, I never got a chance to be tired. It hit my girlfriend Katrina first, and the ferocity scared her. After giving honor to the porcelain throne, she stumbled to the bedroom and slept. As I heard her steady breathing, I began to realize just how stoned I was. Really, really, really stoned. My mind was in utter chaos, and I was seeing trails, and paranoia was setting in. I knew that what I was thinking and feeling was not real. I was simply under the influence of a very powerful drug. Well, a very large quantity of an otherwise manageable drug. And it would pass. Everything was going to be okay. I simply had to keep it together. This is not going to be a bad trip. to sleep, but I'd never felt less like sleeping in my life. Besides, it wasn't even 8 p.m. yet. Hooray for small miracles, since the more time I had to ride it out, the better. I had no choice but to go to work the next morning, even if I was up all night tripping my brains out, which was looking likely. Even worse, I had an electrolysis appointment after work. The next 24 hours were going to last forever, and there wasn't a damn thing I could do about it. What if I never come down? There's always that bit of panic when a drug experience is less than pleasant. Again, no matter how much I understand intellectually what's happening, that fear can still crop up. That one I was able to talk back down. You are merely a drug-induced figment of my imagination. Tomorrow, you'll be out of my system. Fuck you! Unfortunately, it was quickly replaced by a deeper, darker, and more idiosyncratic fear. You'll never make it, you know. You'll never fool anyone. You'll never pass, be taken seriously. How could you possibly expect otherwise? Have you looked at yourself lately? Do you realize what others see? How foolish you appear? Give up. You haven't got a chance. Even if you weren't too arrogant to believe in prayer, you wouldn't have one of those either. That voice was harder to make go away. I decided to follow Katrina's lead, to force as much of it out of my body as I could. I stumbled into the bathroom, put a towel down in front of the toilet so I wouldn't be kneeling in scattered cat sand, and leaned in, closed my eyes, opened my mouth wide. Nothing. I was queasy, but nothing would budge. The space inside my eyes started to flash and pulsate, as though trying to distract me. No. I opened my eyes, reminded myself of where I was and what I was doing. This is not going to be a bad trip, I told myself. This is not going to be a bad trip. I leaned in again, closed my eyes, tried to ignore the swirls and patterns inside my head, and stuck my finger down the gullet. Closer, closer. It's tough, you know. The gag reflex is well guarded for a reason, and I've never been able to induce vomiting before. But I knew this time I had to. And my gorge was stirring, but nothing was coming up. I could feel every single muscle, my throat opening up, readying itself for the outpouring of what I imagined would be mostly brownish puke. My body felt like it was inverting itself into the opening at the back of my mouth, as though my insides would be sucked through like a black hole, with ripples running through my body like tremors, everything working towards the single goal of evacuating the substance, which I should have been more careful with in the first place. My brain was happily providing the internal visual pyrotechnics in anticipation of the very external biological show about to happen. Except it didn't. I slumped down next to the toilet, resigning myself to the fact that I was stuck with it for as long as it wanted to be with me. This, I still reminded myself, is not going to be a bad trip. I got up and walked into the living room. The new Christmas lights we put up that evening cast in a greenish-blue glow to which I was not yet accustomed. I looked around, took everything in, acknowledged my surroundings. I sat down at the computer, read some email, most of it making no sense, and I realized it was all beyond me. Besides, it took very little for my mind to wander. Well, not so much wander as scamper off in a random direction like the insane, chattering little monkey it was. I went back into the bedroom and lied down. Katrina was still very much asleep. Eventually, I joined her. Thank you.